Hi, here are 7 things that will really help either speed up the mortgage application process or things that will speed up the process when you first meet your mortgage advisor. Now, number 1, your ID. Everybody thinks their passport is valid. Just double check the date on the passport so you can prove your ID, because you need photo ID. You may also have a driving license, but that's great for proof of residence, proof of address. Because you need 3 years address history, just make sure that's all up to date. So the best way is to get your credit report, check that you're registered to vote, and because you're registered to vote, that will show on your credit report and that will actually help with your address history. Now, when it comes to credit reports, it's very, very useful. I will put in the link. I've got an affiliate link to Check My File. The reason why I recommend that is, 1, it's an affiliate link, so you'll be supporting me, which I appreciate. But 2, I just use it so much. That's why they gave me the affiliate in the first place, because it has all of the credit agencies. It has TransUnion, it has Equifax, and it has Experian. And then that way, when you're looking at lenders, they will look at different banks and different building societies use different credit agencies. So if you've got something like Check My File, it has all of the credit agencies, and then that way you're covered. You know what each bank will see when you're applying for that all-important mortgage application. So just to recap, so far we've talked about you will need proof of ID, which will be photo ID, and a passport is great. Secondly, you'll need proof of address, and driving license is great. And some lenders don't mind provisional, but some people prefer a full driver's license. There are other things you can use like bank statements and utility bills, but normally the standard are the passport and the driving license. So just check those are valid and in date. The next thing, as I said, that you're registered to vote. By registering to vote, they can actually find where you are. Banks like to know your 3 years history of address history, and that does help with the application. It gives them a bit more comfort of knowing where you've been for the last 3 years. The next thing I would say is bank statements. Now, you need 3 months worth of bank statements, clean bank statements. What I mean by that is no loads of high expenses on it, no gambling if you can, that also they don't really like. You living in your overdraft, they don't really like that. And so if you know you're going to be applying, start cleaning up your bank statements early. The next thing is they also want to see your income. So the bank statement they're going to be looking at is, especially if you're a first-time buyer, obviously you won't have a lot of expenses, i.e. you probably won't pay council tax, utilities if you still live with your parents. If you're renting, then you may, or it may just be included in the rent. But what they like to see is your income. And what they'll do is they like to see 3 months bank statements. And they also, if you're employed for proof of income, want to see 3 months of pay slips. Now, they will look at the net amount on that pay slip and check it matches what's hit in the bank account. So make sure that all of that ties up. That comes on to proof of income. Now, I assumed that you're employed. If you're employed, it will be pay slips. With the pay slips, they can be quite particular. They need to see the gross amount, they need to see all of the relevant deductions, and they need to see the net amount. They also need to see a valid date on it, and they also would like the company name and company address. Also, this is a great opportunity to check that you're on the right tax code, because obviously if you're in emergency tax, it means that your salary is a lot lower, which obviously doesn't help with affordability. The next thing to look at are your on the bank statements are any sort of credit cards, any missed payments or bounced payments or problems with the direct debits or anything like that. Just make sure they're really a clean set of statements for those 3 months, and that will really help. When it comes to proof of income, we've talked about employed with the pay slips. If you're not employed and you're self-employed, if you're self-employed, sole trader or limited company, they will also, they won't obviously look for pay slips there unless you're on the payroll for the limited company. What they'll look at are your SA 302s, tax calculations, and your tax year overview. Now they come hand in hand. They will want to look at both, and then they'll want to look at least 2 years. Now some lenders will lend on the last year if it's the lower of. Some will do average of the 2, some even ask for 3, depending on what you do for a living and what's going on with your credit score and things like that. If you're a limited company, they will want to see your audited accounts. That needs to be done by an accountant. So if you have a bookkeeper, that's great, but they will ask who your accountant is. If you don't have an accountant and you've been doing it yourself, they normally, on standard, if it's a limited company, they ask to see the accountant's details. They prefer a set of audited, signed off by an accountant accounts rather than just you've done them yourself. So that's something to bear in mind. The next thing is, as I mentioned before, the credit report. So that is obviously great for when you're just checking your credit. It should have what you should do on your credit report, and you should do this on a regular basis anyway. Just look at it. Does it make sense to you? Verify the balances there, verify all the credit cards, all the loans, that kind of thing. Also, it's a good time at this point to build up your credit. So if you've literally got no credit cards, I would recommend just get yourself one credit card. It doesn't have to be a high limit, and just spend a little bit, maybe buy groceries, and then make sure you pay it all the way down every single month. And once you've done that for a few months, people with low credit scores, it does give them a better credit score. And as I said, registering to vote also does help your credit score. But I will be doing a video in a lot more detail about how to help with your credit score. The next thing is, so we've talked about registering to vote, we've talked about bank statements, we've talked about proof of income, we've talked about credit files. The next thing is proof of deposit. Now, most people get deposits 2 ways. They either save up themselves. So banks, if you say it's savings, they can ask for up to 12 months savings history. I mean, normally that statement isn't too long anyway, because it's coming from a savings account, and you can do that. The second one would be if it was a gift. So they'd expect to have a gift letter, or depending on the lender, they may have a template, and you can fill that out or get your mortgage advisor to fill that out on your behalf. The other thing is, I did have a client once that was selling their company shares. So the lender was happy to actually see the statement of shares, and then that way they knew that they were going to use that deposit when the time came, but they didn't have to sell the shares there and then. So it was the statement of shares, which is also a valid deposit depending on the lender. Lender criteria can vary, so this, you need to double check this or get your mortgage advisor to double check that. And the last thing I would say is do a budget. So have an idea roughly of, based on your income, how much can you afford the mortgage to be each month. It does help, as I said, if you're renting already and you do know your utilities, council tax, that kind of thing. But you can get a rough idea anyway, and then that will help with your affordability. So if you've got all of those in check, so number 1 was your ID, to verify your ID, passport, driving license. Number 2, I think, was make sure you register to vote because of your address history. Number 3 was your credit file. Just make sure that that is accurate, there are no errors, check all the addresses on it. Addresses are important. Make sure it's all accurate on your file, and as I said, check my file that I'll put in the link is really, really useful because it does all the credit agencies. Next, I mentioned proof of income. Make sure your payslip has all the details it needs and it matches up to the bank statements. That brings me on to next, having your bank statements, 3 months worth of clean bank statements. Then you've got proof of deposit, which normally is 12 months, or a letter saying that you're getting a gift, or whichever form that your deposit's coming in. So obviously it changes from lender criteria, and I think I've mentioned all of it. So if it's proof of income, just to recap, it is bank pay slips. If it is self-employed or sole trader, then it will be the SA 302s, tax calcs or tax calculations, and tax year overview. They like you to have at least 2 years of that. And then if it's a limited company, then they want you to have audited accounts signed off by an accountant, and normally they'd like 2 years of that also. So I think that's everything. But if you've got any questions, by all means go into the chat and ask questions, put in comments, and I'll be more than happy to elaborate on any area. So thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.